this is Miss Arifa, and in this video I'm going to talk about the monitor model. This is one of the earliest theories in second language acquisitions, and this one was proposed by Stephen Krashen in 1978. This theory is actually inspired by the previous theory on second language acquisition from Noam Chomsky about language acquisition device. We're going to talk about that later in more detail, but for your information, monitor model has had a big influence in the field of teaching and learning second language, especially the one that believes that grammar should not be taught explicitly. So what is actually proposed in this theory? So this theory or this model has 5 hypotheses. Well, to help you remember, just remember the word amnesia. Okay, it's not exactly the word, so it's an acronym. Amnesia stands for A for acquisition and learning hypothesis, M for monitor hypothesis, and then N for natural order hypothesis, and I for input hypothesis, and also the last one, A for affective filter hypothesis. I'm going to talk about it one by one. So the first one is acquisition and learning hypothesis. So in this hypothesis, Krashen proposed that there are differences between acquisition and learning. Then the difference is in the consciousness of the learner. So Krashen proposed that acquisition is when somebody learn or acquire language subconsciously. So you don't really realize that you learn something. It's like when you acquire your first language, when you, for example, if you are Indonesian students and then since you were born, you have been exposed by Bahasa Indonesia, and then without you realize, you become a native speaker of Bahasa Indonesia and you become fluent in it. You don't consciously learn it. And learning in Krashen's point of view is what he called as conscious learning. This means that when you learn, you realize that you learn it. It's almost, well, for example, when you learn the second language, when you learn English in a classroom. So that's a conscious learning because you come in the classroom and you realize and you plan you want to learn English. So Krashen proposed that these two are different. So the acquisition is the subconscious learning of a language, and learning is the conscious effort of learning a language. And usually this is done in a classroom. So the second hypothesis is the monitor hypothesis. What is this hypothesis? This hypothesis actually says that when someone learns a language, what is learned is actually monitoring or become the editor of what we produce. Let me give you the example. Say, for example, you have learned that when you want to say something in the past, you have to use past verb. You have to change your verb into a different form that is suitable to be used for past activities. That's what you learn. But and then one day you want to produce this sentence in the past. Say, for example, you want to say that you saw your aunt, and then you say, oh, last week I see my aunt on the way to school, but and then you remember that that's not what you learn. When you want to say something in the past, then you have to change the verb. So after that, you change your verb into saw. So you say, last week I saw my aunt on my way to school. So you change the verb because you already learned that you have to use past verb. So this is the theory that Krashen proposed. Learning, or what is learned, is used to edit or to monitor what we want to produce as a language learner. Okay, the third hypothesis is called the natural order hypothesis. So natural order, basically, in this theory, Krashen proposed that the natural order of any language acquisition is basically similar or the same. There's an order that is called as natural order. So when someone learn one language, and the other language, actually the order can be predictable. You can predict what you will learn after one stage to the other stage. And this is actually also based on some past research. But even though that's the case, and that's what Krashen believed, but he also stated that if the goal is language acquisition, okay, if you want the language to be acquired, not only learned, then in the teaching syllabus, the teaching should not follow this order of grammatical acquisition. So you just have to follow the natural step of learning and acquiring of the learner, which is very unique for each individual. You don't have to follow the order that has been found by the past research if the goal is acquisition. Okay, the fourth theory in monitor model is the input hypothesis. So what is input hypothesis? So basically, Krashen proposed that when a learner wants to successfully acquire language, then the input has to be comprehensible for that learner. What does it mean by comprehensible? He actually used this formula called I plus 1. So what is I plus 1? It's basically said that if you want to learn something, if a learner wants to successfully acquire something, then the input, or what is accepted in the brain, should not be too difficult or should not be too easy. So it's like I plus 1. Say for example, if you are on the level of I, then what you learn must be I plus 1, not plus 20, not plus 5. So that means what you learn, the input has to be a little bit more difficult than your ability at this moment. Say, for example, when you read something, if what you read is too difficult, that means it's I plus 5 or 20. So it's too high for you, it's too difficult for you. Then you will get nothing because there is no comprehensible input. Basically, you don't understand what you read. Or if you listen to something that is very difficult to understand and you are still in your beginner level of acquiring this language, then you will not get anything because you basically don't understand anything. You don't have any input at all. That means there's nothing to store in the brain. But if you have a material that is just a little bit more difficult, then you will get new things that you can acquire, and then you can put it in your brain, and then your brain can store it, and then it becomes something that you acquired. It also happens if the input is also too easy for you. If, say for example, you are in intermediate level and then you read something that is for the beginner student level, then what happens is that you don't get an input, a very meaningful input. You probably get some, just a little bit, but it's not going to be like the most successful acquisition because it's too easy for you. So the best way to learn or acquire language, according to Krashen, is I plus 1, something that just a little bit more difficult for you, so you can have something new, but it's still not too difficult to understand, and your brain can process that and then make it into acquired material. Now, the last one, or the fifth hypothesis, is the affective filter hypothesis. So what is affective filter? So according to Krashen, when affective filter is up or you can say on, then language acquisition will be hindered. So it's not going to be successful. So what is affective filter? Well, affective factors are things like motivation, interest, self-confidence. Those are the things that can actually support or hinder your learning and acquisition. If, say, you have affective filter, meaning, for example, you become demotivated or you don't have motivation, that means your affective filter is up or it's on. And when that happens, then the acquisition probably will not be successful. So basically, this is the theory. Affective filter, we can say those are the things that are related to feelings, yeah, affection. So this is the theory, the last theory from Krashen in the monitor model. Okay, so that's all. The monitor model from Krashen, we have 5 theories or 5 hypotheses in the monitor model. We can use acronym AMNIA to try to remember it. A for acquisition and learning hypothesis, M for monitor hypothesis, N for natural order hypothesis, I for input hypothesis, and A for affective filter hypothesis. I hope you learned something from here and take notes. And if you have any comments or questions, please just pop the questions or comments on the comment section below. Thank you so much for your attention. See you next time. Bye.